r/s credit. What are you still mad about? I graduated in 2008, in the middle of that recession. There were no jobs available because I was magically overqualified with my college degree and underqualified with no experience. I got one interview and I was perfect for the job, but the employer said that I live too far away. The commute would have been an hour and 10 minutes. But I was willing to move because I had just finished school and there was nothing keeping me in my college town. The interviewer just kept shaking his head saying that's too far of a drive. Dude, fucking listen to me. It would have been an awesome job. I had a pretty similar experience the other day. An interviewer asked about my living situation and got mad when I told her that I'll probably be moving to a city 40 minutes away from the one where I'm living right now because we're in the middle of a housing crisis and it's pretty much impossible to find somewhere to live in this city unless you're rich. I told her that I could commute there, but she just wasn't having it and kept asking if I was just going to leave the city like that. It was definitely a weird experience. So back when I was in kindergarten, my class has a huge snitch. We were doing arts and crafts and I ended up getting her as a partner. She said my name, and when I turned around the string I was holding ended up hitting her in the arm. A string, and she cried and told the teacher had to move my clip down, and my parents kept telling me don't hit people. After all that I still hate her. Oh, that reminded me of my kindergarten friend, Timmy. He had those metal braces on his legs, but we all didn't care. We still played with him and hung out with him, and he invited all of us to his birthday party. The next day after his birthday party, he had lot of superhero stickers and told all of us to paste it on his metal braces so he could feel super powerful. Kindergarten us thought it was brilliant, so we took his stickers and started pasting them on. Right when we were done, the teacher walked in on us. Timmy starts fucking bawling his eyes out, saying that we held him down and put all of those stickers on his leg braces. We were dumbfounded, and OFC tried to deny it, but no, this teacher would rather believe this cripple, so she punished all of us by writing a note to all of our parents explaining what we did, and they had to chip in to buy new leg braces. This was back in the 90s where teachers' words was the absolute truth, so we got into major trouble from our parents. My best friend could barely sit the next day because of a major beating from his dad. I don't recall the exact amount. My mom did share that story few years ago, and I think she said that she and my dad had to chip in $50. So yeah, fuck you to me. I don't care that you get sad more often when we play games without considering you, such as Red Rover, Foursquares, and Tag. Edit lim clarify, my best friend's dad didn't beat him up as in using him as a punching bag. I meant it as in he didn't take it easy on spanking my best friend. My apologies for the way I word it. Two things. In 1998, when I was 13 years old, the Smashing Pumpkins played a free concert in Minneapolis. I had never been to a concert before, but I convinced my mom to let me go. I had plans with my best friend and was super excited. That was until one of the neighbors needed a last-minute babysitter overnight to watch her infant and toddler. Mom decided I was doing that instead. She paid me $100 for the work, and I remember that being the first redesigned $100 bill I had ever seen. But I missed the concert. 100k people showed up. Yeah, it probably would have been a nightmare situation with that many people and me being so young, but I didn't get to be a part of it, and people are still talking about it. At my old job we had 2 community fridges for everyone to bring their lunches, and freezers for us to store some bulk stuff. I had a box of corn dogs in the freezer. One day, I went to the break room to make a corn dog for lunch. I put my hand in the box and was infuriated to find out that not only had all of my corn dogs been eaten by someone that was not me, rather than throwing the box away, they filled the box with ice cubes to weigh it down and put it back in the freezer. We all labeled our food with our names and dates, so whoever took my lunch knew it was my lunch. I know people's lunch gets stolen at work all the time. It's the audacity of weighing the box down and putting it back that really makes me mad. This was 7 or 8 years ago, and I'm still mad about it. Never did find out who did it either. Being the only second grade class in the history of my school to miss out in the annual apple picking trip, all because a group of boys had been consistently acting out for a while. The teachers believed the best way to punish them was to pull the field trip from everyone. Of course, the boys didn't learn anything from it, and I was left quite bitter. We went on a school trip for geography class to some hills to take pictures of wildlife, etc. I had permission as everyone else. I was walking fine, but I'd had 2 knee operations and missed almost 6 months of school. They did one knee at a time to allow for some recovering before doing the other. So on the day of the trip I go to school, do this 2.5 hour coach ride and get there. Then they tell me, because I have bad knees I can't go on the walk the entire point of the trip and had to stay in the cafe at the start of the trail. If they weren't going to let me go on the walk itself, why on earth did they both say nothing before it and even ask me for a permission slip? I could have either stayed in school and done my other classes or just stayed home. That, along with almost every other big thing I can remember that happened in school, made me think that schools are run by morons. When I was 19 and my sister was 16, my parents bought sister her first car. They said it wasn't truly hers, but when either of theirs weren't working they always asked her permission to borrow it. That car eventually was passed to me when they gave her second car. This car was a gift from one of my father's coworkers. The man told him it was for his daughter, since the guy worked with my dad, since my mom was pregnant with her. When I pointed out that my sister already had a car, it made sense to give it to me. My father explained that, since the guy didn't know I existed, the car had to go to my sister. Makes no sense to me, but I'm not about to argue with my dad. So, I asked that, if when I'm ready to get my own car could they help me out. He agreed. Time comes when I've been working a while, and the piece of crap I'd gotten from my C's is on its last legs. I did some shopping around and found something. I asked if they could help as they'd promised. I kid you not, my sister called a family meeting and convinced my parents that they shouldn't help me out because I had a job. They of course agreed with her. I'm in my 50s still bitter. Thanks C's. Edited to add a time frame. When I was 9 years old, my friend and I had the original red and yellow Pokemon games. We spent months getting every Pokemon we can and evolving them to complete the Pokédex. We saved up our money and bought a link cable just so we can trade. Another month or so my friend's parents buy him blue version. We were ecstatic. We rushed through the game just to collect the exclusives to that game and trade it with one another. We each were at 149 Pokemon. One day my younger cousin, 5 years old, came over and wanted to play my Gamma Boy. I was afraid of letting him play on my saved file, that I started a new game for him and handed him the Gamma Boy to play. Later on that day I took my Gamma Boy and went over to my friend's house. I started up the game and saw Player Ash, Badges 0, Pokédex 1, Time 013. My heart sank when I saw that. I knew exactly what happened. That little dipshit saved over my file. I was bawling when it happened, and my 8-year-old friend was consoling me saying it's going to be okay, and we are going to do it all over again. We never did. When I confronted my cousin he said he didn't know what he was doing, and pushed every button in the start menu. Still mad about it today. I will never get Magmar. I will never get 150 ever again. Last year, on Father's Day, I found out that my father had passed away weeks prior. His wife, not my mother, kept that information from me purposely and even used his cell phone and pretended to be him via text after he had passed. I will never get over this. Edit. Thank you all for the kind words. I rarely post and this kinda blew up, so I'll answer a few questions. I don't know if there's an inheritance. I've been told he blew a lot of his money on medical expenses, and she was basically paying for everything at the end. I've called the probate court pretty much every month since it happened and nothing has been filed. I'm doing okay at best. It's been tough at times. Obviously this past weekend was rough, which I think is why I decided to randomly reply to this quest. I currently don't have an insurance, though that is changing soon, so I haven't been able to speak to anyone about it. Wow. Thank you for Reddit Gold. Not really sure what to do with it. I'm completely taken aback by the response of all you wonderful internet strangers. You've given me the courage to pursue this further and post this to r/legalibis. You can't even begin to understand what this means to a man who's been struggling with his self-worth. Thank you all so much. I had a friend as close as a brother steal $500 cash from my wallet and proceed to abuse the fuck out of my kindness. Good news is I got the money all back after he realized I was on to his theft and not falling for his lies. Bad news is he sliced my couch up, pretended to find $200 of the $500 trying to masquerade his theft. He even said I should give him a cut of that, even though I was still out $300. My couch is still ruined too, and I sleep on that thing. No longer associated with him, but I really wanna curb stomp his bitch ass. Edit. He's not a drug addict. When I was 21, away at college, someone broke into my mom's house when she was away. It was over Christmas and robbed her blind. The good thing for her was her homeowner's insurance covered and replaced everything. So her extremely out of date TV and stereo, etc., were all replaced with brand spanking new ones. What sucked for me is that no one noticed that my room had been rifled through and my entire comic book collection, which I'd been collecting since I was 5 years old, was gone. Also, all my old tabletop RPG books. Here's one that got stolen. I bought it new at my local game store when I was 13, and boxed sets had been cherry picked off my bookcase in such a way that no one but me realized there were gaps. Some of those books were gifts, with inscriptions and everything. Because no one noticed my stuff was gone for over a year, I was outside of the window, where my mom's homie Arwana's insurance would paid to replace my things. I'm 46 years old. I wish upon those thieves a lifetime of paper cuts. I was about 9, 4th grade, when this happened. First off, my mom is a very religious woman who takes Christianity extremely seriously. She is also the type of person that is very inclined to believe anything that affirms her intuition, which led her to create/believe wild conspiracies based on shreds of evidence and her God-given mother's intuition. Well, like many people my age, I was completely obsessed with Pokemon back in the day. I saved up all my money I got from doing chores and yard work for our neighbors, and went out and bought myself a brand new Gamma Boy SP and a copy of Pokemon Sapphire, which was all the rage among my 2nd grade friends at the time. Fast forward to 2 years later, a new family had moved into our neighborhood and all of their kids were around me and my brother's ages, so we started to hang out a lot, which let our moms, unfortunately, get to know each other. So one day I'm outside playing with some friends and my mom calls me back to our house. I unassumingly waltz in, unaware of the life-altering trauma I was about to experience. Apparently, my new friend's mother, we'll call her Mrs. L, was very into French Christian magazines, and lately a hot topic for these wannabe prophets were the Pokemon games. Mrs. L had informed my mother that she had read a lot about Pokemon recently and told my mom that the games were actually Chinese propaganda disguised as video games that was purposely designed to make American kids addicted to the games and feed them anti-Christian ideals. And yes, somehow my mother was convinced that this was true without doing any research on her own, because I just knew something was odd about those games. Basically, Mrs. L and my mother agreed that they both needed to confiscate these games from their kids so that we were not fed any more propaganda. So, after a drawn out lecture on our family's Christian values, my mother informed me that she would be ridding the house of any Pokemon games that we owned. She even explained to my brother and I that we would experience withdrawal symptoms due to those darn Chinese manipulating our minds with their addictive tech. So yeah, basically my mom rounded up all of our games, took them to GameStop, and sold them for scraps. This wouldn't have been as traumatic if this was any old game, but this was Pokemon. I had spent hours upon hours grinding as hard as my prepubescent thumbs would let me in those games. I specifically remember getting a Plul to level 100 and being immensely proud of that feat. I probably had well over 200 hours poured into those cartridges, and what did I get in return? A used copy of Pac-Man World Rally for GameCube. The kicker? Mrs. L's kids threw a fit when she told them she was gonna take their games, so she ended up folding and letting them keep them. From then on, me and my brothers were the only children at school and in our neighborhood without the Cayman, and all we had to show for it was a Pac-Man racing game that was totally shit compared to Mario Kart. Fuck you, Mrs. L. Me and my level 100 Plul will never forgive what you did to us. Edit. Some people are saying that Mrs. L didn't deserve the fuck you as much as my mother. I should have elaborated a little more about her. Don't get me wrong. Fuck my mom for believing that shit. Every time I go home, me and my brothers still find a way to bring that up, haha. But yeah, basically Mrs. L was the one that convinced my mom that it was the addictive / propaganda nonsense. I was also best friends with her kids from late 3rd grade up until my 6th grade year. Why did we stop being friends, you ask? I got on Xbox with Call of Duty Black Ops, and she thought that meant I would end up being a total psychopath because of that. So yeah, we went from best friends who legit hung out 4 to 5 times a week to people I saw maybe once or twice a year at random events. In closing, it's still fuck Mrs. L. My mother body shaming me when I was 11. I'm nearly 40 now. I had started growing pubic hair and she and my older sister would laugh nastily about how long it was. IDK if it really was. I've never fucking measured. She said it was long like a taproot, and she and my sister started calling me taproot to get a rise out of me. Sometimes they would call me that in front of other people as a threat to embarrass me by outing my freakish pubes. The puzzled person would press them to explain the nickname and what was so funny about it. I would beg them, with tears of fury and shame, not to tell, and people would wonder why an 11-year-old girl was crying over a silly random nickname. She also told me, around that time, that I was in my ugly stage. Since I was never told I had outgrown that stage, I simply trusted that I continued to be in my ugly stage. Now that the flush of youth is gone, I look back at photos from when I was 14 to 30 and regret how much I hated my body. I'm not saying I was ever a great beauty, but I definitely didn't deserve to feel as ugly as I did. Edit. Wow. Thank you all for the kindness and love. I feel it through the internet. Having so many of you be indignant on my behalf is so validating. I'd like all you kind people to know that I'm fine now. I have a wonderful husband who values good health, inspires me to exercise and take care of my body, and tries to convince me that I'm beautiful. We have 2 healthy children who we raise to appreciate their bodies for being healthy, but I do sprinkle them with generous comments about how beautiful, handsome they are. The biggest part of me overcoming my body hatred was becoming fit. When I'm fit, I care less about how I look. I really enjoy how I feel. Love to all of you. That the vets tried to take my brother's, 16 at the time, bird away, saying he needed a license and wasn't qualified to have bird. Our dad's friend found the bird a few weeks old and was dying. My brother nursed it back to health and would wake up at ridiculous hours to just look after it. Bird got sick, so my brother and mum took Bird, now called Ella, to the vet. They took Ella. My brother started crying and tried running away with her cause he didn't want to leave her. He ended up running into a dead end and the bird was taken away. 3 days later, the vets called and said he could have the bird back as a bird expert or something. Said that the bird was just malnourished and told them to give it back to him as the bird was happier with him and not coping well without him. Something along these lines. I heard about this, and within 5 fucking minutes of researching licenses regarding this bird, would you have fucking guessed that you didn't need a license? So my brother was sad and clearly fucking depressed because his baby was taken away and he was told he would never have her back. But would you look at that? A few years ago, my husband and I were planning our wedding, only his family wanted it rushed because I was pregnant. They're super religious. Mine didn't care, and they all got together and decided on a few dates. Those dates my mom was busy, business trips mostly. But it was all stuff she couldn't back out of. I told them this, asked to push off the wedding, asked several times as nicely as I could manage. Several of my husband's family members basically said she was a shit mom for choosing these already planned and paid for things over her own daughter's wedding. So I threatened to go on one of her business trips with her, a business trip to Hawaii that lasted a week before and a week after the wedding date window if they wouldn't reschedule. My mom even offered to pay for me to join her. Love her so much for this, and they finally caved and realized I was serious. Yeah, I'm still mad at those family members for calling her a shit mother. Really long story. TLDR at the bottom. I had been trying to schedule a meeting with a higher up at our client for weeks. I finally got in touch with his admin who said she needed him to confirm that the meeting was needed before she could schedule it. Fair enough. She forwarded me to his voicemail. Weeks later and countless calls and emails to him and the admin, and I finally got through to her on a day when he was in the office. He and I discussed, and he agreed that we should meet. He forwarded my call back to his admin. She and I found a date and time that would work, and we agreed that she would send the invite to everyone because we were meeting in a room at the client office. I sent her the email with the list of attendees while still on the phone with her and explained that I couldn't access the calendars of 2 of the attendees. They may or may not come based on their availability, but should be included anyway. I hang up and head into another meeting, then came out to a ton of emails, 2 voicemails, and some texts. The emails were the invite, a cancellation 10 minutes later, an email from the client with all attendees, my boss, and my boss's boss, the company owner, copied explaining that his admin works hard and doesn't deserve to be treated like this. If we still want the meeting, we can schedule it on our own. A million back and forths between my boss, boss's boss, and the 2 others on the invite trying to figure out how I offended this guy so much. The voicemails were from my boss and my boss's boss panicking trying to figure out what was going on. The text was from my boss, who knew I was in the other meeting, trying to get my attention to leave and call her. Being a good employee, my phone was on silent. I said fuck that and called the client's personal cell phone. We have access to a database with everybody's office and personal numbers, but there's an understanding that we are only to communicate using office numbers and preferable directly with the admin, except in extreme circumstances. Me potentially losing my job seemed extreme enough to me. He answered, and I immediately dove into hi, this is me from company. I'm not sure how I offended your admin, but we had a great conversation earlier before I jumped into a meeting. Then I came out to what seems like a really tense situation. I just wanted to call to see what was going on and how we could fix it. Well, my admin tells me that she sent the invite and immediately got 2 people declining from your company, so she cancelled the meeting. If you want the meeting, you can still have that time on my calendar, but you need to schedule it. Okay. We discussed that. I just wanted to lock down the time on your schedule, but couldn't access everyone's calendar. I guess it's just a misunderstanding. Can you pass me back to her so I can ask her to reserve the room? Then I'll send the invite. Haha. Yup, just a misunderstanding. He then apologized to me and said that she's been a little stressed because she's headed out on vacation next week. We joked about how stressful that can be trying to pull everything together in those last few days while I was trying to keep my anger and confusion down. I'll ask her to reserve the room. Please also include her when you send the invite. Thanks for calling to clear everything up. Okay, thanks. We'll see you. Date and time of meeting. The bitch cancelled the whole fucking meeting that I spent over a month trying to schedule because 2 people that I told her were up in the air didn't accept the invite. Turns out they both replied tentative. It took me hours to try explaining this to my boss and boss's boss to their satisfaction that the client wasn't angered out of his mind, and in fact he laughed about the misunderstanding on the phone. I then had to stand up at the next staff meeting to discuss the situation and how I could have handled it better. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe.